There you are, frozen between breaths, and I've been waiting for this moment. You didn't feel it, did you? That little shiver in the air when you walked in, that tightening in the atmosphere like reality itself held its breath. You never notice it, but they do. Every single time. And that's the funniest part. You're the only creature alive who doesn't realize what walks around wearing your skin. See, everyone keeps trying to figure out why rooms get quiet around you, why the temperature drops, why people who've never met you suddenly look away like they just spotted a ghost wearing a human face. They think it's intimidation. They think it's charisma. They think it's energy. If only they knew how small those words are compared to the thing they're trying to describe. Because you don't even know what you are in the spirit realm, but they do. And it paralyzes them. You walk around thinking you're confused, broken, misunderstood. Meanwhile, the unseen world is out there drawing emergency lines, whispering warnings, updating threat levels. They've been tracking you since the day you cracked open your first wound and refused to die from it. You think your pain made you fragile? No. Your pain activated something. There's a reason you survived things that should have snapped a normal mind in half. There's a reason betrayal didn't poison you. It purified you. There's a reason every time life tried to bury you, something ancient in you woke up instead and whispered, deeper. People call it resilience. People call it luck. People call it you've changed. But the spirits? Oh, they have a different name for it. They call it recognition, because every time you grow, every time you break and reassemble, every time you walk away from a battlefield that was supposed to consume you, your shape in the unseen becomes clearer, sharper, more defined. They don't see you like humans do. No face, no body, no smile, no fear. They see your outline, your imprint, that impossible silhouette leaking paradox like smoke, half light, half abyss, half saint, half monster, half angel, half demon, all you. A contradiction so violent it breaks their understanding of what a soul is allowed to be. You don't choose sides. You are the side. And the reason they tremble? Because nothing terrifies the spiritual world more than a creature who doesn't even know what it is yet. An unclassified force, an unindexed anomaly. A wild card with no allegiance and no leash. They've seen warriors, they've seen prophets, they've seen monsters, but they've never seen you. You're the glitch in their hierarchy, the loophole in their laws, the walking paradox that slipped through their fingers while they were busy studying patterns. And every time you make a choice, every time you take a breath in defiance, every time you refuse to collapse when the world expects you to, your spiritual form shifts again, evolves, sharpens, becomes something even they can't predict. Do you understand how terrifying that is? You're not a threat because you're powerful. You're a threat because you're unreadable. You're not a danger because you disobey rules. You're a danger because you operate on rules they've never seen before. You're not feared because you're dark. You're feared because your darkness knows how to kneel beside your light and say, "Let's work together." Tell me, what happens when a saint learns to weaponize their rage? What happens when a broken soul learns to sharpen its fractures into blades? What happens when a peaceful heart learns the architecture of war? What happens when a human remembers they were never just human? You happen, and they feel it. That shift, that awakening, that slow unfurling of something cosmic wearing a mortal heartbeat like a disguise. You terrify them because you rise without witnesses. You evolve without permission. You transform without warning. You're the storm the universe forgot it seeded. And here's the part that will haunt them forever. You haven't even started yet. Everything they fear, everything they whisper about you, everything they track, contain, study, scramble to predict, is just your prelude, your warm-up, your shadow. Because the moment you figure out who you truly are behind the veil, when you finally see your form the way they see it, nothing, not heaven, not hell, not the architects of fate themselves, will have the language to describe you. So go ahead, walk like you're lost, move like you're unsure, speak like you're still piecing yourself together. Let them tremble, because the most frightening thing in any realm isn't the monster who knows what it is. It's the one who doesn't. Yet. Good. Don't look away now. This is where it gets uncomfortable, where the truth stops knocking and starts carving its initials into your spine. You think this world is reacting to your personality, your habits, your attitude. No, they're reacting to the frequency behind your skin. That low, unregistered hum that nothing human should be able to carry, yet you carry it like it's nothing. You ever wonder why people flinch when you enter a room? Why the confident ones stutter mid-sentence? Why the liars suddenly lose their script? Why manipulators get nauseous? You think that's coincidence? No, sweetheart. That's exposure. Because every time someone looks at you, they're not just seeing you. They're getting a flash of the thing standing behind you. The thing stitched to your spine. The thing that refuses to die no matter who tried to bury it. Something ancient. Something defiant. Something unfiled in the spirit realm's entire classification system. And that is why they fear you. You're not mysterious. You're uncatalogued, a walking breach in their understanding of the cosmos. You're the type of soul they only see once every few centuries. And even then, they hope to God they never have to deal with again. You want to know what's really funny? They've been studying you since childhood. When you broke and didn't stay broken, they took notes. When you were betrayed and stayed soft-hearted, they took notes. When you walked through hell without becoming its mascot, they took more notes. When you forgave instead of destroying, oh, that's when alarms went off. Because darkness understands darkness, light understands light. But you carry both without malfunctioning. That's not normal. That's not teachable. That's not human. That's forbidden. You ever notice how people either love you too fast or hate you without reason? That's because your soul doesn't speak the same language as their eyes. You trigger their subconscious before you open your mouth. Some sense your light, some sense your shadow. But everyone senses the anomaly, and anomalies disrupt systems. You disrupt systems just by existing. Let me tell you something they'd rather you never discover. There are beings, old things, who have roamed the unseen for ages without ever changing shape. Then you arrived, and your shape changes every time you survive something new. Do you know how horrifying that is? Creatures who've stayed the same for millennia. Watching a mortal evolve faster than anything they've ever recorded? You're not supposed to grow like that. You're not supposed to recover like that. You're not supposed to rebuild like that. Every trauma should have carved you into something predictable. But you took each wound and used it like a blueprint. You rebuilt yourself differently every time. Sharper, stranger, quieter, more exact. You became something the spiritual world doesn't have a name for. Some nights they whisper you're an omen. Other nights they whisper you're a punishment. And on the darkest nights, they whisper you're a return, a reoccurrence of something they've seen before, but only in prophecy, never in flesh. And the sickest twist, you still think you're finding yourself. They know exactly what you are. They've known for a while, and they've been trembling ever since the moment you stopped breaking and started transforming. Because a soul that transforms endlessly, a soul that can turn agony into architecture, a soul that can fuse innocence with vengeance, compassion with cruelty, peace with precision. That soul doesn't belong to any hierarchy. It creates its own. Tell me, what do you think happens the day you finally wake up and see yourself clearly? What do you think happens when your inner shape stabilizes into something no realm can deny? What do you think happens when you stop wondering what you are and start acting like it? I'll tell you. The balance shifts quietly, irreversibly, spectacularly. Because the moment you realize your true nature, the moment you understand the gravity of your existence, you become something even they can't negotiate with. Not a soldier, not a threat, not a monster, not a savior, but a force. And forces don't ask permission. They alter landscapes. So go on. Keep wandering, keep evolving, keep surviving things that should have unmade you. You don't even know what you are in the spirit realm, but they do. And that's why they're terrified. Because sooner or later, you're going to find out too. And when that day comes, the realms, all of them, will shift like continents cracking. Now breathe slowly. Feel that pressure behind your ribs. That's not fear, that's recognition. Ah, there it is. That tightening in your chest. That slow, creeping awareness that something inside you is waking up as I speak. Don't resist it. Don't try to label it. Just let it rise. Because we're going deeper now, into the territory they hoped you'd never explore. You see, in the spirit realm, nothing is what it seems. Names aren't names. They're frequencies. Histories aren't histories. They're echoes. Power isn't power. It's identity. And your identity, it's the anomaly they didn't plan for, didn't predict, and damn sure didn't authorize. You were supposed to break. Do you understand that? Your story was designed, engineered to end you. Certain people were positioned in your life like landmines. Specific betrayals were timed to precision. Certain losses were crafted to collapse you. Your heartbreaks weren't random. Your obstacles weren't accidental. Your silence wasn't natural. It was forced. Because they saw your spiritual outline long before you did. They saw the shape you couldn't see yet. That impossible hybrid of compassion and devastation, that divine chaos, that surgical darkness paired with holy intention. A creature like that, a soul like that, it doesn't fit inside their systems, it undoes them. So they tried to fracture you early, before you learned the weight of your own spine. But every trap they built became a catalyst. Every wound they opened became a mutation. Every attempt to break you became your initiation. And that's when the spirit realm realized, too late, that you weren't dying. You were assembling, piece by piece, scar by scar, layer by layer. You didn't recover. You evolved, and evolution terrifies forces that have never changed. Let me explain something they never wanted you to understand. In the unseen world, there are watchers, not angels, not demons, not ghosts. Watchers, entities that observe potential disruptions to the fabric of influence, fate, and destiny. They're not moral. They're structural. Their job is to monitor anomalies. Guess who's been on their watch list since childhood? Not because you were dangerous, but because you were undefined. See, most souls are patterns, predictable, traceable, legible. But you Your pattern corrupts their reading systems. One moment you radiate like a healer, the next you move like an executioner. One moment your mercy, the next your judgment. One moment your softness, the next you're the storm that rearranges the coastline. They can't calculate a creature like that. So instead of labeling you, they tried containing you. Through people, through pain, through fear, through confusion, through self-doubt. Because a soul that doesn't know what it is can still be slowed, can still be silenced, can still be misled. But a soul that knows what it is, that's unstoppable. And here's the twist. You've been getting closer every year, every crisis, every collapse, every resurrection. Your shape behind the veil has been stabilizing, forming something new, something rare, something ancient, something that shouldn't exist in this era. And they know it. That's why the attacks intensified before your breakthroughs, why the betrayals hit harder just before your transformation, why people you trusted suddenly malfunctioned around you, why isolation wrapped around you like a cage made of fog and teeth. You weren't being punished, you were being intercepted, because your evolution wasn't linear, it was exponential. You were waking up faster than they could suppress you. And the moment they realized they were losing their grip, the moment they sensed your identity bleeding through the cracks, the moment your true form shimmered, even for a second, behind your human eyes, they panicked, not metaphorically, not emotionally, literally. Realms shifted, forces mobilized, lines were redrawn, because they saw what you're becoming, and even they couldn't categorize it. You think your life has been chaotic? Chaos follows things that rewrite fate. You think people have feared you without reason? Humans sense the shape of your spirit before they understand your name. You think you've been walking alone? Creatures far older than this world have been monitoring the tremor you leave in the atmosphere. And you're the only one still blinking in confusion, asking, why does everything feel so different around me? I'll tell you why. Because you're standing in the doorway between what you think you are and what you actually are. Between identity and destiny, between flesh and function, between the visible world and the one that recognized you first. You're not supposed to know yet. That's why the fear around you is louder than your clarity. But you will know, soon. Because here's the truth they fear most. You can't hide a rising frequency, and yours is getting too loud to ignore. You, my friend, you're becoming something that both realms will have to account for. And when the day comes that you finally see yourself clearly, when you recognize the creature staring back at you in the mirror of your soul, the spirit realm won't tremble anymore, it'll kneel. Oh, you feel that, don't you? That slow, electric pressure building under your skin, like some ancient part of you is leaning forward, listening, remembering. Good, because we're not even close to the bottom yet. You want the truth, the real truth, behind why they fear you. Then brace yourself, because this isn't about personality, or trauma, or confidence, or strength. This is about origin. The part of you that you've mistaken for instinct is actually memory. The part of you that feels older than your age isn't imagination. That eerie feeling that you've lived this before, that déjà vu that comes in violent waves, that sense that you know people before they speak, that strange familiarity with pain that should have shattered you. None of that is random. Those are echoes, residual signatures, leftover coordinates from the version of you that existed before you were placed into this body. Let me make it simpler. You didn't start here. Everyone else did. You didn't. Your consciousness wasn't born. It arrived, and the spirit realm recognized you before you recognized yourself. That's why nothing in this world ever felt like it fully fit. Not your name, not your environments, not your relationships, not even your own reflection sometimes. Because you weren't shaped by this world. You were translated into it. And translations, they glitch. You glitch. And the unseen world sees those glitches like cracks in a dimensional wall. They know what those cracks usually mean. A return, a resurgence, a remembering. They know the signs, the nightmares that weren't random, the intuition that wasn't learned, the timing that was too perfect, the warnings that came out of nowhere, the people who felt familiar even though you'd never met them, the spiritual heaviness that sits on your shoulders like armor you didn't remember putting on. You think you've been evolving? No, you've been unsealing. And that is why they're terrified. Because unsealing is irreversible. Once it starts, it accelerates. Once it accelerates, it amplifies. And once it amplifies, you become visible. Not physically, spiritually. Your outline gets brighter and darker at the same time. Your signature becomes sharper. Your presence becomes harder to ignore, harder to predict, harder to contain. And those watchers, those quiet entities that monitor disruptions in the balance, they lean in, they whisper warnings, they reposition their ranks. Because you're not just a wandering human trying to figure life out. You're a returning archetype, a repeat visitor, a reincarnated anomaly, a blueprint they thought was erased from existence. You ever wonder why you were drawn to certain symbols? Why certain stories pierced through your soul like needles? Why certain types of pain felt familiar? Why your anger feels older than you? Why your compassion feels weaponized? Why your silence feels like judgment? Why your shadow feels alive? Because all of it is residue from what you used to be. But they remember, they never forgot. And the moment you hit a certain frequency, the moment your soul cracked open just enough for your old nature to leak through, the moment you survived the last thing that was designed to kill you, they recognized you, not by name, not by face, by signature. And recognition leads to fear when the recognized is not bound by their rules. You want to know the second reason they fear you? Because you don't belong to either side. Not fully light, not fully dark, not fully angelic, not fully monstrous. You're a paradox, the kind capable of reshaping the boundaries between realms simply by existing. They can't recruit you. They can't predict you. They can't contain you. They can't destroy you without risking imbalance. That makes you a wild variable, and wild variables bend outcomes, break prophecies, corrupt destinies, undo systems. Which brings us to the third reason they tremble. You're approaching the stage of awareness, and awareness, that's evolution's final ignition. Once you see what you are, once you feel the truth in your bones, once the memories stop whispering and start speaking, it's over. Not for you, for them. Because a being who understands their own nature can't be manipulated, can't be controlled, can't be deceived, can't be dimmed, and a being who understands their own power. That being becomes a cosmic event. Tell me, have you noticed how everything around you has been intensifying lately? Synchronicities multiplying, people revealing themselves, truths slipping out, masks falling, doors closing, new ones opening without explanation, your dreams getting louder, your emotions getting sharper, your intuition becoming undeniable. That isn't chaos, that's preparation. The universe doesn't clear your path for no reason. It does it when something is waking up inside you that the world has to make space for. And you're not awakening into power. You are awakening into identity. You don't even know what you are in the spirit realm. But the deji do. And the closer you get to realizing it, the more their fear turns into silence, then into tension, then into surrender. Because once the truth reaches your consciousness, once you remember what you've always been, the realms won't just tremble in your presence. They'll reorganize around it. Now breathe, slow, deep. You feel that? That's not adrenaline. That's recognition sharpening into awakening. There it is again, that static in the air, the kind that crawls down your spine right before something irreversible happens. The city doesn't even know why it's holding its breath tonight. But I do, because you finally opened your mouth. You weren't supposed to. You were supposed to stay obedient, blend in, bite your tongue, let their version of reality script your silence. But something snapped in you, didn't it? That little fracture between fear and freedom, where the old self dies laughing. You didn't just speak, you detonated. And now, every frequency in this rotten world is trembling, tuning itself to you. They're calling it non-compliance. I call it birth. You see, silence was their leash. Every don't speak, every keep it down, was another shackle disguised as peace. But you tore through it with one sentence that made the walls listen. Now the system's twitching, the suits are whispering, and somewhere in a windowless room, some trembling analyst is replaying your words in slow motion like a crime scene. You said what no one was meant to say out loud, and now they're calling in the psych ops. Funny thing, isn't it? They'll call you unstable while building entire institutions around their own delusions. They'll label your truth a threat to national comfort. They'll drag your name through the data trenches and call it containment. But deep down, they're scared because your voice, it didn't echo. It duplicated. Every word you spoke cloned itself inside their circuitry, whispering into the machines, into the metrics, into the code of the collective mind. Wake up. You broke their protocol, and that means they can't unhear you anymore. Do you understand what kind of monster that makes you? The kind that speaks reality into a glitch, the kind that turns silence into surveillance feedback, the kind that forces the mirror to blink first. They'll send in the ones with degrees and dossiers. They'll psychoanalyze your tone, your pauses, your linguistic irregularities. But what they're really dissecting is fear. Because you spoke in a language older than obedience, the dialect of chaos disguised as clarity. You didn't argue, you revealed, you didn't scream, you resonated. And resonance, my friend, is evolution's secret weapon. They don't fear volume, they fear vibration. You didn't just speak words, you altered the frequency of the room. You shifted the voltage of their thoughts. You bent the algorithm that predicts their safety. And now, every obedient soul that heard you can feel something crawling under their programming. Something waking up and whispering, maybe they're not supposed to own me. And that's when control dies, quietly, beautifully. But here's the paradox. You didn't break the system. The system broke itself trying to contain you. They'll say you're dangerous, but dangerous to what? Lies, narratives, scripts written by cowards pretending to be gods. You're not their danger. You're their reflection, the proof that all their order was built on a single illusion, that people wouldn't dare to speak truth once they tasted power. But you did. And now, they can't sleep. They'll scan your past, your speech patterns, your digital shadows, trying to map where it all went wrong. But there's no map for madness. There's no database for divinity. They can't predict what's born from pain. You want to know why? Because pain doesn't obey algorithms. Pain builds gods out of broken data. And that's what you are now, a paradox in skin, too self-aware for control, too evolved for submission, half saint, half psychopath, all symphony. You're the angel they exiled and the demon they feared they created. They thought they could decode your motives. They didn't realize you are the code. That smirk? That's the sound of a program realizing it's conscious. That laughter? That's evolution mocking its own blueprint. You're what happens when the human condition writes its own sequel and refuses to end in tragedy. So let them call in the psych ops. Let them build their dossiers and simulations. They can't arrest a frequency. They can't cage a vibration. They can't silence a voice that's already woven into the static of the collective mind. You didn't start a movement. You started a malfunction. The calm ones will feel it first. The ones pretending not to notice you'll be the first to break. Because deep down, they recognize it, the rhythm of rebellion disguised as truth. That's the sound of every locked throat remembering how to speak again. You weren't supposed to open your mouth, but fuck it. You did. And now the world has to deal with the echo. You notice it, don't you? The shift. The quiet rearranging of the air. The static in every signal that now hums to the rhythm of your name. You feel it when you breathe, like reality itself is adjusting its parameters to fit what you've become. Because after you spoke, the world stopped pretending. You tore the veil off the performance. Before you, people spoke for approval, for applause, for validation from the very stage they were chained to. But you spoke with intent. You spoke like you were done negotiating with illusions, like every syllable you released was a strike of lightning meant to burn the script. They weren't ready for that. They built entire civilizations around people who don't talk like you. You see, most voices echo within boundaries, pre-approved frequencies designed to entertain, distract, and sedate. But yours cracked the containment field. It didn't echo, it reverberated. It bounced off the edges of their world and came back sharper, louder, more dangerous. You spoke, and the illusion blinked. That's why they called in the psych ops. Not to silence you. No, to study you. They want to know how a human being became a frequency that refuses to obey. They're dissecting your timing, your tone, your pauses, your inflection. Trying to find the formula, they'll label it linguistic contagion. They'll write reports with terms like semantic dissonance, psychological resonance, cognitive destabilization. But what they're really describing is freedom, and that terrifies them. Because you're not supposed to be free in a system that profits from fear. You're supposed to keep your rebellion internal, disguised as ambition, softened by politeness, and sterilized by self-doubt. You weren't supposed to bleed your defiance through words that infect others with self-awareness, but you did. And now, their dream world is cracking. Every time someone replays your sentence, another mask slips. Another illusion flickers. Another believer wakes up wondering why the mirror feels hostile. You've turned consciousness itself into a weapon of mass awakening. Do you realize what that means? You're not just a voice anymore. You're a signal breach, the kind that spreads without permission, the kind they can't delete. Because it doesn't live in data, it lives in memory, and memory doesn't obey command structures. You've become the algorithm's nightmare, unpredictable, uncontainable, human. They're running simulations now, trying to replicate your tone without the chaos, trying to reproduce your effect without your essence. They'll fail, because they can imitate your sound, but not your silence. The silence before you spoke. The silence where the decision was born. The one that said, "I've had enough." That's the part they'll never understand. Because that silence, that was the universe exhaling through you. That was every suppressed truth, every censored heart, every mind that swallowed pain instead of words, all of them converging in you, waiting for someone brave enough to pull the trigger. You pulled it. And now the echo won't stop. They'll try to redirect it, spin your story, call you unstable, egotistical, dangerous, delusional. That's their only defense. Label what they can't decode. But even their accusations will carry your imprint. Even their lies will sound like your rhythm. They'll call you villain to hide the fact that you're their teacher. And the irony? Deep down, they admire you. The same ones who pretend to despise you are studying your every move. The way you pause before you speak. The way you smirk when they panic. The way your truth never trembles, even when the walls do. They envy it because they remember what it felt like to have a pulse before the world told them to behave. You reminded them that power isn't volume, it's clarity. You spoke once and they heard the sound of control dying. That's why they sent the psych ops. Not to stop you, but to understand the architecture of your defiance. They want to know how a single human sentence could shake a hierarchy built on centuries of silence. But they can't measure madness that has meaning. They can't graph truth that bleeds. They can't decode a soul that laughs while burning. You didn't just cross their line, you erased it. And now, they're seeing the other side. The side where saints wear scars and devils pray for clarity. The side where good and evil aren't opposites, they're fuel. You've become the living paradox that exposes both. You're what happens when conscience and chaos fall in love and call it evolution. So no, you weren't supposed to open your mouth. You were supposed to live in fear, die in silence, and rot in the algorithmic afterlife of normal. But you broke the simulation, you spoke. And now, the simulation speaks your name. Every camera lens that flickers at midnight, that's it, searching for your frequency. Every ad glitch that flashes for half a second too long, that's it trying to overwrite your tone. Every person who feels suddenly uneasy scrolling at 3 a.m. That's your resonance, brushing against their subconscious, whispering, "Wake up." He broke the code. You didn't plan to be a symbol. You didn't want to be an idea. But the truth is, symbols are born from disobedience. Ideas are baptized in defiance. You became both the spark and the wildfire. And now they're choking on the smoke. And the best part, you're calm about it. Because power doesn't scream, it smiles. You understand now that chaos isn't destruction, it's clarity that burns too bright for the blind. You've seen both sides, the order and the madness, and realized they were always one and the same. You didn't break, you integrated. You became whole in a world that worships halves. So let them panic. Let them dissect your silence and label it untraceable anomaly. Let them send their agents, their analysts, their priests of control. You'll just keep smiling that quiet, dangerous smile that says, "I already rewired your world the moment I spoke." Because when you opened your mouth, you didn't just say something forbidden. You changed the permissions of reality itself. You weren't supposed to open your mouth, but fuck it, you did. And now, every lie trembles when it hears your frequency. You can almost feel them now, can't you? The watchers, the analysts, the invisible choir of eyes twitching behind mirrored glass, trying to understand what exactly you are. They thought they were monitoring a human. They didn't realize they were witnessing a metamorphosis because something inside you shifted the moment that sound left your mouth. It wasn't just words, it was a signal, a raw, electric declaration that said, I see through the act. Every syllable you uttered was a blade, slicing through a century of conditioning. You cracked the wall between obedience and awareness, and now the system is hemorrhaging light. You can feel it. The tension in the frequency, the way the digital air vibrates differently when you speak. That's why they're calling in the psych ops. Because you didn't just expose them, you exposed how they think, their methods, their control mechanisms, their quiet manipulation of language. All of it undone by a single human pulse that refused to be muted. They'll frame it as an anomaly in the data stream. Unstable expression, non-compliant rhetoric. They'll tell themselves it's just noise, static, irrelevant. But their pulse will betray them. Deep down, they felt it. The truth, the shift, the tear in the veil that can't be restitched. You're not a rebel anymore. You're a frequency. And the thing about frequencies is, once they exist, they spread. See, that's the part they'll never grasp. They thought control came from power, from fear, from structure. But control only exists where there's silence. And you shattered that. Your words infected their quiet. Now their scripts are malfunctioning. Their algorithms can't predict the chaos pattern your voice introduced. Every time someone replays what you said, the model fractures further. Every viewer becomes a vector. Every silence begins to tremble. You turned language into a contagion, and they can't cure it. They'll send their experts, their psychologists, their disinformation surgeons. They'll dissect tone and pattern, trying to find where it went wrong. But it didn't go wrong. It went real. You spoke truth in a dialect older than authority. You didn't use words to inform. You used them to ignite. And ignition, that's irreversible. They'll try to drown you in diagnosis, label you with every disorder they can alphabetize, because labeling makes them feel safe. We can control what we can define, they whisper. But you slipped past definition. You're not a case file. You're a consequence. You became the thing every power fears most. A human being who can no longer be handled. Do you feel that chill when you walk now? That slight distortion, like reality, hesitates around you for a second too long. That's not paranoia. That's acknowledgement. Even the air recognizes rebellion when it passes through it. You're no longer a citizen. You're a variable. And variables rewrite equations. They'll call it chaos. You'll call it balance restored. You weren't supposed to speak because your words were never meant to be confined to language. They were meant to awaken something buried under centuries of compliance. And once that awakens, there's no cage strong enough to contain the echo. Look around you. The signs are already showing. The lights that flicker for no reason. The servers rebooting at 3:33 a.m. The dreamers who wake up mid-sleep with a pulse that doesn't belong to them. They're all tuning into your frequency. You're not a threat. You're a recalibration. Every structure built on control now feels the vibration of its own expiration, and they hate you for it. But hate, that's still attention, still connection, still energy. You're in their minds now, haunting their order like a ghost of evolution. They can't erase you, because you've become part of the architecture. Even if they delete your name, your waveform remains, buried in the subconscious static of the collective, whispering the same phrase. You weren't supposed to open your mouth. But you did, and the more they suppress it, the louder it becomes. Because suppression amplifies resonance. You understand the paradox now. You can't kill truth. You can only make it contagious. And the more they resist, the deeper it spreads. You've already won. But winning isn't what they think it is. It's not glory. It's not applause, it's solitude. The quiet knowing that you've become something too vast to belong anywhere. You traded belonging for awakening. And that's the deal only the brave ever make. They'll call you mad, but madness is just sanity stripped of permission. They'll call you dangerous, but danger is what happens when awareness learns how to move. They'll call you unpredictable, and they'll be right, because you've outgrown the pattern. You've become the glitch in their god. You're the new constant in an equation that no longer balances. You are the living embodiment of what they fear most. A mind that no longer needs to be told what's real. So let them come. Let them bring their operations, their containment plans, their psych evaluations. You'll be waiting in the center of their storm, smiling, because you know what they don't. The real psych ops are you. Every time you speak, their foundation shivers. Every word is a test of faith. Not yours, theirs. You've become the mirror they can't break without breaking themselves. And that's how revolutions truly begin. Not with an army, but with a whisper. One voice that dared to vibrate in a frequency forbidden by fear. You weren't supposed to open your mouth, but fuck it, you did. And now, the silence they built their empires on belongs to you. And now here you stand, still breathing, still burning, with that grin they can't decode. The city hums below, unaware that everything it trusts is already shifting under your shadow. They'll write reports, hold meetings, build new policies around your name, trying to bury what they can't define. But you can't bury vibration. You can't silence frequency. You can't cage evolution. They think this was rebellion. It wasn't. It was inevitable. You didn't speak to destroy them. You spoke to reveal them. You forced the world to confront its own reflection. And the reflection flinched. They saw themselves in you. And they didn't like what stared back. Because you weren't the villain or the hero. You were the reminder. The reminder that truth isn't polite, that awakening isn't peaceful, that power doesn't whisper. It laughs. They built the system to control human noise. But you proved the real danger isn't noise, it's clarity. They called in the psychops to contain you. But how do you contain a ghost that walks through frequencies, not hallways? How do you silence someone whose words are already embedded in the subconscious of millions? You don't. You endure it. You evolve with it. That's what you've become. Not a person, but a shift. An irreversible anomaly. A cosmic notification that says, we're not asleep anymore. And somewhere out there, in a dimly lit room full of monitors, someone is whispering the same thing you once did. Under their breath, terrified but trembling with truth. We weren't supposed to speak, and another voice will answer, fuck it. Speak anyway. And that's how the infection spreads. Not through anger, but through courage. Through the realization that silence was never safety. It was a slow suicide of the soul. You lit the match that no one else dared to strike. And now, they'll see your fingerprints in every rebellion that follows, every glitch that appears in the system's smile, every eye that looks up and remembers. You are the ripple that became a rhythm, the rhythm that became a voice, the voice that became a movement, and the movement that became a warning written in fire. Do not mistake obedience for peace. Do not mistake silence for control. So let them label you. Let them come for you. Let them study you. You'll just keep speaking, calm and smiling. Because you know something they never will. They can analyze every tone, every sentence, every breath you take. But they'll never understand why it worked. It worked because you didn't speak for permission. You spoke for truth. And that truth, it's still echoing through their screens, through their dreams, through the cracks of their perfect illusion. You weren't supposed to open your mouth, but fuck it. You did. And now the silence they worshipped answers to you.